Hi, this is Les Levine, the self-proclaimed voice of truth and reason in Ohio sports. Whenever a new front office or coaching staff comes to an NFL team, one of the first things that happens is they take a look at the players on the bubble, then say, let's get rid of them and bring in our own guys. Give Andrew Berry and Kevin-Stefanski some credit. They need a third receiver behind Beckham and Landry. They saw Rashard-Higgins, who's played 4 years here, scored only 1 touchdown last year. It would have been really easy to let him go and find somebody else. But after checking everything out, they came back and signed him to a 1-year, almost $1 million deal. You know what? That's a win-win situation for everybody. Bud Shaw is here. More Sports and Less Levine is on the air. From the worldwide headquarters of More Sports and Less Levine, it's a Tuesday night. Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to More Sports and Less Levine into its 24th consecutive year, seen exclusively on cleveland.com. Bud Shaw is with us. Hello, Bud. How are you?
Great to be with you, Les.
Great to have you here. I was thinking of taking a Dennis Rodman vacation, but they wouldn't give me the time off for that. Did you see that last night?
I've got a couple Rodman stories for you from my brief time over in Detroit.
I'm ready.
Well, you know, I was over there working for the National Sports Daily just for a brief amount of time, 3 or 4 months. I was actually at the game where the Pistons lose and walk off without shaking hands. And that was a year that I believe Rodman was up for Defensive Player of the Year. And I went to write a story about them one day, and it was his birthday. And I remember asking him, like, he was the nicest kid at one point before he went, all Hollywood, and I don't know how else you'd want to describe it, but and I asked him what he was doing for his birthday, and he grabbed me by the sleeve, pulled me outside, and showed me this truck that he had bought. And it looked like the moon rover, it had so many lights, and the tires were huge, and in the bed of the pickup, he had gotten new rollerblades for his birthday. I felt like I was talking to like a 14-year-old kid. That's how excited he was about that. He was more excited about that than he was about anything his team was doing or he was doing individually in the NBA. He was a really nice kid at one point, but when Chuck Daly left and he was on his own after that, he really struggled with a lot of personal issues. And now, of course, you don't know what to make of him. What's the real guy, and what's the guy who's trying to make headlines?
216-575-0403 is the number to call. Bud Shaw with us. You can email us during the show at reallesslevine@gmail.com. All right, so we had the draft over the weekend, Bud, and the next draft, assuming everything gets back to normal, is going to be here in downtown Cleveland. I was kind of surprised they were talking about the locations, although they haven't said where the set will be because you don't know what the weather's going to be like. But I was surprised that the First Energy Stadium and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame will be the focal point when, if you're trying to bring people in here to spend money at the restaurants and bars, I would think that wouldn't be the best location.
Yeah, I can only hope there's more restaurants and bars down by maybe this means there's more restaurants and bars down by the lakefront, but right now it's hard next year, but it's really hard to project what that whole thing is going to be about. I don't know how you felt about that draft, Les, but I actually enjoyed it. I enjoyed the virtual draft. I enjoyed watching, the players in their homes with their families.
The only thing that I felt uncomfortable with was it was funny with what Roger Goodell was doing at the beginning. It wasn't so funny as it wore on.
Yeah, I don't think that played very well, but just the informality or the casualness of watching players with their families, and also watching these, maybe if the best thing that comes out of this is that we lose the term war room for the next
that didn't look like
future.
A war.
I'll be happy. I mean, here are these GMs and coaches sitting there with their the family pet, and the kids are hanging out with him. And we all know that the NFL has for so long taken this way too seriously, and we've played right into it as media people. So I really had reservations about how that whole thing was going to come off, but I thought it came off really well.
You know, it could have saved the Browns franchise if they had this 4 or 5 years ago on the Johnny Manziel deal, that you wouldn't have had Jimmy Haslam walking in and saying, hey, take Johnny, let's wreck this league, take Johnny Manziel.
That's right. There also, he wouldn't have crossed paths with a homeless guy who urged him to take Johnny. So
how about Belichick's dog Nike?
I'll bet that, they have this thing with dogs where they put like microchips in them so that if they get lost, you can find them more easily. I bet his dog's got all kinds of CIA stuff implanted.
Well, that dog's probably been trying to get away for a while and hasn't been able to quite do that.
That could be too. Yeah.
It was funny. Every time the camera's about to go to Belichick, he just got up and walked away.
Well, it's talk about a guy who's got the poker face, because they go through that entire draft. I think people were thinking that they might trade up and do something to get another quarterback, and they didn't. And you're sitting there, and I don't even know that I don't have his list in front of me, but I'm not even sure he came away with receiver help. So here you are going to go into a season, this first season after Tom Brady, and correct me if I'm wrong, unless they did something in the last couple of days, it's Jarrett Stidham and Brian Hoyer, right?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. I don't think they have a third, so we'll see what happens on that. You mentioned the name Hollywood, and I mentioned Rashard-Higgins. You surprised he signs back with the Browns? Apparently he had bigger offers, but he wanted to come back and play here.
Well, he was a guy last year that there was an injury involved, but I don't think that was the biggest thing. I think Freddie Kitchens lost faith in him. They had, I don't know if they had, I wouldn't call it a run-in, but they certainly didn't see eye to eye. And Freddie, thought that the media obsession with where Rashard-Higgins was and why he wasn't getting in games was laughable, because he thought that Higgins wasn't really putting out in practice and had sort of mailed it in. So,
I don't know why that's laughable. It was a legitimate thing. I don't know why that was laughable to Freddie. If a guy if he's used for a couple of years and then not used, that's legitimate.
Well, especially when he does get into the Buffalo game, I think he catches the game-winning touchdown, and then he disappears again for a length of time.
Right.
So who knows? I mean, I don't want to make it sound like it was Freddie Kitchens' fault. Maybe there were some things going on with players. I know he didn't exactly like what he was getting out of Njoku either, effort and attitude-wise. So maybe Freddie was holding these guys accountable, and they didn't want to be held accountable. It's hard to say, but to answer your question, I think it's a good move that they signed him back. He's a guy who certainly has a comfort level with Baker-Mayfield. We know that he's going to fit in as a third receiver or maybe a fourth receiver even, but he's certainly a guy that has shown that he and the quarterback are on the same page.
Yeah, and Higgins will have his fourth head coach in his fourth year here.
Yeah, that's, I don't want to say that Baker Mayfield was totally a victim last year of what was going on, because he just didn't play well. And we've talked about that in the past, that I think he came into the season expecting things to be easier for him than they were. But certainly to see so many coaching staffs, even for Mayfield now, third year, 1, 2, 3, fourth head coach in 3 years.
Yeah.
Am I right about that? Yeah. With different coordinators, accountant Greg Williams, different play callers. You could see where it would become a real obstacle to a younger player's growth.
Okay, but that being said, I give the Browns' new regime credit, because those are the kind of guys with those stats and that history that they just say, we don't need him. We can bring our own guy in, even if there's a little trouble involved. You'd rather have their own guy. But they stuck with this guy, which I don't think most of us would have seen coming.
Yeah, other GMs and other head coaches in Berea have said that they're not so egotistical that they're gonna They're going to change players out just because they think they're smarter than the previous regime. These two, Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, might actually mean it.
All right, let's look ahead then, instead of going into the draft, which we'll do a little bit later. The Jadeveon Clowney sweepstakes are still out there. He's a free agent. It looks like the Browns and 3 other teams are still involved in that. Talking about the Titans as well. There's 3 other teams: Seahawks, Titans, and the Browns all appear to be in the mix. You want to take a run at them?
Yeah, again, whenever I talk like this, people go, "Well, what do you care? It's not your money." But you want the team that believes it's a few years away, maybe from a Super Bowl, to have roster flexibility in order to maximize that opportunity. So, I don't know what it would take to sign Clowney. I would certainly be interested, but I also think that Olivier-Vernon, when healthy, is still a good player, and I could see them wanting to go into a season and see if they can get what they expect, what the past regime expected to get out of him. I think he's a good player.
When I look at the roster and I see Vernon, I keep shaking my head and said, "Wait a minute, he's still here?"
Yeah, I know. So much has happened in the offseason since with the different guys that they brought in on defense and now on offense. I thought the draft was, was very specifically designed for them. Anybody who wants to tell me the best player available, this is why I laugh when I hear that expression. If you go up and down those picks, they were all picks that these guys at positions of need. And sometimes I saw Joe Banner tweet a few days back that sometimes when you do that throughout a draft, you can't help but reach for some guys. Maybe that's the case, but it seems to me that they very possibly filled, almost every hole they had on this roster.
216-575-0403. You can email us during the show at real-levine@gmail.com. We'll come back. We'll take a look at a comparison of the rosters from last year till this year. And did you know the Ohio Lottery has paid out over $1 billion in winnings over the last 6 months? People are winning in record numbers. Winning is happening all around the state of Ohio. Play an Ohio Lottery game and play it today. We have Facebook. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/more-sports-and-les-levine. New content is posted each and every day. We ask you the questions, you respond with the answers, and we post it on the show from 6 until 7 p.m. Bud Shaw with us. More Sports and Les Levine continues exclusively on cleveland.com.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions, or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Do you like Ohio State football? Would you like to get information from me, Doug Lesmerises, about Ohio State football without having to look at my face? We have got the plan for you. Become an Ohio State text subscriber through cleveland.com. You send a text, 614-350-3315. What do you get? 2, 3, 4 texts right in your phone every day about Ohio State football. Inside information, polls, voting, all kinds of things. You can be on our podcast. We take text subscriber questions on our Buckeye Talk podcast every week. If you really want to be involved with Ohio State football, in season or out of season, become an Ohio State text subscriber from cleveland.com. Send a text to 614-350-3315. 14-day free trial. What do you have to lose? $3.99 a month after that. 614-350-3315. I'll see you in your phone.
As a kid growing up, my dream was to go to college, play baseball, and get a degree. Coming out of high school, I had 2 choices. I was accepted into a 4-year university, but I decided to come to Tri-C after receiving a scholarship. I got my associate's degree at Tri-C. They transferred all my credits straight into Baldwin-Wallace, so I started at Baldwin-Wallace University as a junior. My name is Tyler Leonard, and I earned my first degree at Tri-C.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Birthdays for today: 1947, Hell in a Handbasket was born in this state. Hall of Famer Barry Larkin of the Reds, Chris Kaman, DeMarcus Lawrence, Blake Bortles, and Denzel Ward of the Cleveland Browns from Macedonia, all celebrating on the 28th of April, 2020. 216-575-0403. But do you feel like I do about returning to play? I think that maybe because it's 5-6 months down the road or more than that, with the NFL, I see some belief that they can get it done. Basketball and baseball, I just don't see how they can get it right in the time frame that they have. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine players coming back and finishing an NBA season. I do think now, and I'm not saying I believe that this is a great idea health-wise, but I do believe that there will be a baseball season now. And I don't know what I'm basing it on, just the fact that states have started to reopen slowly. If there isn't any big setback, any spike in positive cases that result in cities closing up again, I think we'll probably see a baseball season, but I still don't believe it's going to be until July at the earliest.
Yeah. They talk about, under one of the plans, they said if somebody comes down with it, they'd have to stop operations for several weeks. It's hard for me to believe, numbers-wise, based on the numbers we're seeing. Hard to believe they'll get away with players, front office personnel, umpires, and all that stuff. Hard to believe they could get through a 2-3 month season without somebody coming down with it.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this earlier, Les. It's one thing to talk about sequestering players in a hotel room, but what happens when the guy with 3 kids and his kid is sick and his wife needs him to come home and he takes 2 days to go back home? Is he going to be able to rejoin his team at that point? Will he? I have a few people, at least one person in my little extended family who's been sick and who just had a coronavirus test 2 days ago, and it was negative, and still felt sick. Got sicker, did a telemedicine call with a doctor who said, I don't have to see results of a test. I can tell by looking at you, listening to you breathe, and seeing what your symptoms are that you have it. So proceed as if you have it. So the thing about testing is, in the case of sports, is like it's not going to give you that, that fail-safe result in some cases. And you could still have people walking around who test negative, who are carriers or who just have yet to show symptoms. So it's such a slippery slope that I'm not sure how they're gonna work, but it seems almost certain that there aren't going to be fans.
All right, let's take a look at. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well,
no, I was going to say then it's up to the players and the players' union whether they think it's a necessary risk or a calculated risk to bring players back.
Well, they want their full pay, so I think I know what the answer would be. I mentioned earlier looking at the roster from 2019 till 2020. Let's take a look at the backs and receivers. Just jump in there at any time, bud. You've got quarterback, of course, Mayfield and Drew Stanton last year. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. Nobody at fullback last year. Then you have Beckham with Callaway as the backup. Jarvis Landry, Rashard-Higgins, and Njoku with Demetrius Harris backing up. Anything stick out to you here?
No, and I wish I could remember the fullback's name that they signed. I think we're just going to see a different offense, and you see those 2 running backs running at time. There you go, Andy Janovich. Running behind him. I think you can't look at this, and the Case Keenum signing jumps out at me too. I just think prior to this, if Mayfield had gotten hurt, nothing against Drew Stanton, but if Mayfield had gotten hurt and Stanton was still the backup, you'd have a talented offensive team, maybe with better coaching this year, still falling way short of where it needed to be because of the quarterback position. I no longer think that's the case. I think Keenum is capable of stepping in for chunks of a season and still giving you a chance to win games and get to the playoffs.
David Njoku's still on that depth chart. Let's take a look at the offensive line as we finish it off. Greg, this is last year.